You're listening to the Hunt Stealth Podcast with Ryan Uffens, the podcast where we dive headfirst into the wild. Whether you're an aspiring hunter or an adventurer seeking the untamed, together we'll explore the strategies and stories that lead to success in the great outdoors.
Welcome to the Hunt Stealth Podcast. Today we're here with Anthony Dorsey and Russell Andrus. Anthony, you can follow online at Bustin' Bronx, and we won't go into Russell's real nickname, but you can follow him at Rustling Around Outdoors on IG, and we'll make sure and put all the links and everything in the show notes. So, guys, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, so Russ, you know a buddy of mine, one of the partners here at Hunt Stealth, Quinn, and you guys work out together. I don't believe that he works out, but you guys know each other from the gym. And then you and Anthony have just been friends for a long time. They spent a lot of times together outdoors, hunting, fishing, all that fun stuff, right?
Yeah, we kind of got introduced.
You go ahead.
we got introduced at work, actually. We started working together, and I had grown up fishing, not really hunting growing up. And then Anthony and I started chatting, and he kind of got me back out fishing. I turned into one of them yuppies that just golfed a bunch. So he kind of said, dude, stop doing that. Let's go fishing, and got me back into fly fishing, something I grew up doing, and it just snowballed. And now we fish and hunt and ride horses and kind of get after it together whenever we can.
Yeah, I appreciate the shout out. See, Russ is right. We used to work together. It's been a long time, but we, became fast friends when we were working in sales together at a company. And it's funny. I, at the time, had gotten really into fly fishing, and I still super enjoy it, right? But I kind of tend to get obsessed with something and then just try to get as good as I can, and then not that I want to move on from it, but like I feel like I got as good as I could have gotten at doing fly fishing, and then fly fished a bunch of different places. And at the time, the place we worked, I covered kind of the northwestern states and Alaska, and I would take my gear with me. And so I had an opportunity to fish all over the Northwest, steelhead in Washington and trout in all the western states. I've caught every species of salmon on a fly rod. So not that I'd done it all, but my point is I loved it. And then I also at the same time was still hunting and trying to get good primarily an elk hunter. That's always what I wanted to be good at. And so it just took more time and effort to get good at that. And so as that happened, I kind of started shifting more towards hunting. I still do both, but just more of my time dedicated to hunting. And at that same time, Russ just kept going with fly fishing. So now Russ has far surpassed me as a fly fisherman, while I continued to kind of go down the path of hunting. And I dabble in both, but Russ is a better fly fisher than me now. But I appreciate the shout out, because I do think that I set him on that path. He was kind of a yuppie for a minute, even though he grew up fishing. I brought him back into the fold, and then he kind of ran with it. So,
well, I appreciate that. As we had talked a little bit before, and you're aware, I'm new to this hunting thing. It's something I've just started doing. Anthony, what was it that you called it?
Adult Onset Hunter. Yeah, you're an Adult Onset Hunter.
Adult onset,
and so am I to an extent, yeah.
Yeah, I think you kind of get to a certain point where you start looking back at the things that you used to do and the things that you want to do that bring joy. And there is some sort of, I guess the other name for that is a midlife crisis, right? That's what some people probably refer to that as. So I enjoy the heck getting outdoors and spend time with family and friends, and yeah, it's fun to get to talk about it with, we had mentioned that, Brandon Wimpy, your neighbor, he's getting more and more into the hunting and stuff, and he's doing the whole horsing around thing as well. So it's a good time. You get to a certain age, you get to appreciate the outdoors a little bit more. We spend so much time, at least for work, I do anyway, behind a computer screen or on a monitor or on a phone talking to somebody. And now I picked up a hobby that now I'm on a podcast talking to people to talk some more. But yeah, it's like my kids always say, Dad, you sure do like the sound of your voice. But it's fun, man. I mean, this is like a passion project. It's something that I found, like I said, 4 years ago, and been able to talk with some masters in this sport and pick up great tidbits of information that are, ideally going to help make me better. And hopefully the folks that listen get a little bit better too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Well, fellas, go ahead.
As you say, the nice thing too, you spend so much of your time behind a computer screen or whatever you do, getting outside, and whether it's fishing or hunting or riding horses or hiking. I mean, it just recenters so much of what you do and priority and all that stuff too. It's great.
Yeah, it's a reset. I talk all the time, I'm like, when you read the Bible, it's like the prophets would always go to the mountains. That's where they would go to get a reset and come back and get back after it.
That's what I told my mom my whole life. I don't need to go to church. I'm going to the mountains.
It is. There is some truth to that. You're able to get out there and enjoy, this world that was created for us. And it's amazing when you get out there and you start looking at like this amazing world that we live in. And the animals and the creatures, and you start looking at all little things, and it's like, yeah, this, at least my opinion, like, ain't no Big Bang did this just out of happenstance.
Yeah, right.
So tell me, hey, we were talking a little bit before. I want to talk a little bit. You guys had a successful or interesting elk hunt last year. Why don't you guys jump in and share with the folks a little bit about that experience?
Go ahead, Russ. You want to give an intro overview of some kind? I mean, we can fill all the details in, but why don't you give them your before you even get to that hunt? Because Russ is, as I mentioned, he's an expert fly fisherman, and I would say he's just now getting more into hunting. So he's been out a few years in the past with me. Maybe tell him about the death marches I've put you through and what that was like, and then compared to this year. Yeah, because I used to, before I owned horses, which I've had them about 5 years or so, I used to, like a lot of guys, get out there with just my backpack, and most of the time I hunt solo, and I just go hike just miles and miles and miles. And I'm not always the fastest, but one of my strengths, fortunately, is just I can go all day long when it comes to hiking. And so I used to do that a bunch. And then as I was, after I introduced Russ into fly fishing, I said, hey, you know what else you would really love is bow hunting. You should come bow hunt with me, which is not always for the faint of heart, especially the way that, I like to do it. And so just like everything else, I'd usually just take people and throw them in the deep end. That's what I did with Russ. I said, hey, get a backpack and some stuff, grab your bow. I'm like, we're going to go on this hunt. And then we just hiked 15 miles in a day up and down steep vertical stuff. And he's ready to quit. And I just kept making him going. So we did that a couple of times.
So you take people out cold and have him go Goggins style.
You pretty much. Yeah,
totally.
Right. Yeah. It's like,
but here's the
I can see you out there pushing, going like, you don't know me, son.
Yeah, exactly. But then Russ, he'll give you his excuses for why he didn't go for a couple of years, but I think I broke him for a year or two. And then after he rested, then he came back, and we went back out on this last hunt that went well. So anyways, there's my intro to it. Maybe tell him about some of those in your intro into elk hunting, and then how that led up to this last year.
Yeah, no, totally. He's not lying at all. I mean, one of the hunts, the death march that he mentioned, it's a good thing I was doing 75 hard at the time and had books to turn to at night so I could remotivate myself. And one of them, the one I was reading, was David Goggins, funny enough. So I would have to read that at night and remind myself to stop being a little wuss and get the pack back on in the morning, because we were going whether I liked it or not. We were bivvy camping, right? So it was set up the tent at night, break down the tent in the morning, and we're hiking, right? There's no base camp. So we're finding water where we can find it. We've got our food in our pack, and it was miles and miles just out there.
Was Anthony making you drink your own urine?
Almost. I was just going to say there was a wallow, though. I'm pretty sure one of the wallows was like straight elk piss that we filtered out of to fill up our water bottles.
Oh, really? You take what you can get.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that was one of the first hunts we did, and that was brutal. I mean, hiking out the last day, I was out of water. We had like a mile or two to go. I was dead. It was like, I'm never doing this again. So that was one of the first introductions to really just show me what it's like.
I think I remember the first time I went out elk hunting, and you really can't prepare yourself mentally or physically for it. There's nothing like trying to go up and down the slope to find elk. I thought I was in pretty decent shape. I mean, I had to stop, suck wind, and keep going. But now I don't have quite the ticker it sounds like Anthony has, but I can get out there, and I may not be fast, but I can go nice and steady now, which I'm happy about. It makes me feel good.
That's how I am.
Yeah.
Like slow and steady wins the race for sure, especially when it comes to that kind of stuff. I don't know. Like, I hate to run, so I admire Cam Hanes and other people like that are inspirational, just like lots of people do. But that's not my MO. I don't go out and run ultra marathons to prep for hunting. I work out every day and try to stay in shape, but that's just a lifestyle choice. But when it comes to the key for me, and I think this applies to hunting and just everyday life, the key for me is it's a mental thing. Like, I've got this destination in mind, and that's where I'm going. Nothing else even matters. I don't care how hard it is. I don't care if it's raining. I don't care if I'm tired. I just don't even think about that. We're just going until we get there, and there's just no other thought. So whether Russ is with me, dragging behind or not, and he's like, "Hey man, like maybe we stop over here." I'm like, "Okay, stop. I'll meet you up there. See ya." And I'm just trucking along, and it may not be that fast, but like once I'm going to that spot, and you could apply that to just daily life and work, same thing. I think just kind of that persistence is key to, I would say, being successful in hunting for sure. Persistence.
Well, and that applies to all aspects of life, right? Mm-hmm. Like find a target and go after it and just keep pushing towards it. I think for me, like when I'm out, I can't pick something that's like a far distance away and be like, that's where I'm going. I'll break it down into like little mini things. I mean, sometimes like if I'm gassed, it's like a target that's 20 yards. I'm like, I'm going to get to that. And then I'm like, well, then I can give myself a break. And then I hit it and I'm like, all right, we still got a little bit left. Like pick something else, like another 20, 50, 100 yards down the road and just keep chipping away at it. But it's, like I said, it's the same as in life. There's so much that I think we all try and do and accomplish. And it's difficult to maybe try and eat the whole elephant at once. So I don't know. If there's a little piece of advice I'd share with anybody, is just pick a target, go after it, start chipping away at it. And like you had mentioned, Anthony, just be consistent in what you're doing. And you'll be surprised at the ground that you start to make up. And then it starts to kind of compound and snowball.
And just go. Like you just said, it's good to have a plan and it's good to break it down. I certainly do that in a lot of ways too, especially when it just comes to goals day to day. But I think the problem people run into today, specifically because of all the many choices we have, is, paralysis by analysis. You just don't do anything because there's so many choices. And I think the same thing goes for hunting. I've done it with Russ. Like if we're sitting in camp, we're like, well, should we go this way? Should we go up there? Well, we could go this way. What about this option? And 3 hours later, you're still talking about it. At some point, you just got to go. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and even in the pre-hunt, right, when we're e-scouting and trying to figure out, hey, look, we got this weekend and I got to travel this week, so we can't go that week, and we're trying to figure out how do we go. So it's just make that choice and go. And that's been the nice thing is as I figure out elk hunting, right, and so many of your listeners probably are trying to figure out hunting or whatever, is just getting out there and go figure it out. It's nice if you've got someone like an Anthony or whoever, right, that knows what they're doing. They're out there and they want to grind just as hard as you do, or maybe harder than you want to, right? But getting out there and doing it, like we've gone and we've had some easy days and we've had some of the craziest days I can even think about. And I think all of those things, like we've come close to killing together. He certainly killed several elk on his own. And all of those things kind of came together for us on this hunt in the fall. And we just kind of both had the same mentality going into the hunt that I think really set us up to succeed as well. It was just not having super high expectations, but just being kind of realistic, but knowing that we were willing to just go hard to get it done. And that's ultimately what we did.
This episode of the Hunt Stealth podcast is brought to you by ReadyWise Outdoor. When you're chasing adventure, you need energy you can count on.
ReadyWise Pro Meals are packed with over 30 grams of protein and 500 plus calories per serving to keep you energized no matter the terrain. From the protein-packed breakfast skillet to the Thai coconut cashew curry, these lightweight, freeze-dried meals are ready in minutes. Made in the USA, ReadyWise is built for hunters and explorers just like you. Visit ReadyWiseOutdoor.com and use promo code RYAN20 to save 20% off your next order. Elevate your next adventure with blue coolers from Cata Sports, designed to keep your food and drinks ice cold no matter where the journey takes you. With top-tier insulation, rugged durability, and built-in wheels for easy transport, these coolers are the ultimate sidekick for all of your outdoor adventures. Best of all, they deliver unbeatable performance at a price that won't break the bank. Head on over to catasports.com and use promo code RYAN10 to save 10% off your order.
To get it done. And that's ultimately what we did.
Here's what I think made you successful this last time, Russ, that this is a big part of why you weren't successful in the past, I would say, and many people are. And you even, I'm going to remind you, because you said this to me yourself, and I talked about it on a different podcast recently. This year you were all in, right? You talked to your wife and you said, I'm going these days. And then you did everything ahead of time to make sure that like things were taken care of and she was taken care of so that you could go and not be thinking about anything else. Because there had been a year in the past where I took you out and we were in the field and you were like, dude, there's this going on. I feel bad because of this, this, and this. And I do that all the time too, but it's normal. And, you know, I go out quite a bit and my wife gets mad a lot of the time because I'm out a lot. But, you know, if you take care of things ahead of time and you can feel good about being gone so that you can actually be 100% focused on the hunt and nothing else, that's a huge difference maker. And then you were willing to put in the work and not give up.
I think that's something, I mean, it's a fun point that you make, Anthony, because yeah, I remember my first hunt that I went out on and it's like, I'm out trying to like find elk, right? And like the phone keeps buzzing and like the wife's texting and there's this going on and there's this, and it's, you have to disconnect. And if you didn't, I'll speak from experience. I didn't grow up hunting. My wife was not used to me hunting. We've been married 25 years and now all of a sudden I want to disappear for 4 or 5 days. And she's like,
yeah,
what?
It's like
what?
Russ, yeah.
She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So I think this time I'm sending her and the girls, because my son will come with me, send her and the girls on a little mini trip, let them go out, do their own thing. And it's the other expensive side of hunting, right?
Yeah, give her something to do and be happy while you're gone. If you got the funds to do it, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing too, I mean, I'll go on multi-day fishing trips and it's kind of no big deal, right? I'm good. Everything's set up. The hard part with hunting is there's kind of this expectation that, okay, if you're going to leave for this many days, you better come home with an animal, right? With fishing, it's like, I'm just going to catch and release everything. All I'm coming home with is a good attitude. All right. So when you go hunting and you spend all that time, it's like, okay, you better bring home some meat for the freezer because we need to eat.
Yeah.
So it's
well,
making sure
the
that
pressure
you've
on
prepped
yourself.
everything. Exactly. Yeah. It's making sure you've prepped everything and then going into it to say, look, if I don't get anything, that's fine. I'm going to have the experience, but I'm going to try and do my best to get the goal at the end too. Right. So having that right mentality, and you're right. And we did talk about it because we had a bit of a drive just to get to the trailhead. We talked about a lot of stuff and I think we both kind of got each other on the same page going into that hunt so that when we got on the horses, it was like, okay, we're in it. We're in the zone. Now it's time to go get it done.
Yeah. 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 It's interesting because I think about this all the time. Yeah, man. Like there's a lot of reasons to go hunting. I have a million reasons for why I like to do it. But I think you either as a hunter or a, angler, huntsman or angler, either one, there's like stages of progression in your career in those things. So like with fishing, when I first started fly fishing, I just wanted to get really good at being able to cast and catch a few fish, right? I caught a few fish. Then I wanted to catch as many fish as I could catch. And every time I went out, it's like, I just wanted to smash it. And I did. And then it's like, okay, now I'm going to be more selective and I wanted to catch bigger fish. And I didn't care if they were few and far between. I just wanted to catch big fish. And so I kind of did that. And then I wanted to catch different species. And as I mentioned, I caught salmon and I've done a bunch of different stuff. Same thing kind of with hunting. it's just so much harder. So like when I first started elk hunting and bow hunting, man, when I first started it, here's the demoralizing part when you talk about persistence and like the pressure about trying to get something. I hunted for like 7 years before I even killed one. And you were talking about not growing up hunting. I didn't grow up big game hunting per se. I did some other stuff. I've got a whole like other backstory on like my background in hunting and just being in the woods in general. That's kind of interesting. But my point is like I was always in Boy Scouts, a lot of stuff in the outdoors, but my dad didn't hunt. So I just always had this passion for it and had to kind of get into it on my own. So when I got old enough to, have enough money to buy gear or drive myself to spots, I just had to figure it out. So I didn't have a single person teaching me or mentoring me. I read 1,000,000 books, just like I do on any topic I want to learn, watched all the videos. I like many people read Cam Hanes' first book that he put out years and years ago. That was certainly very inspiring to go by myself. And here's the other thing, learning by myself and hunting by myself, nobody else there, just going all by myself into the backcountry for miles and miles and miles alone. Super scary, risky, all those things. But my point is I did that by myself for like 7 years. And every single year I'd say to myself, why am I even doing this? Like, I waste all this time and money. I haven't killed anything. Maybe I'm just the worst hunter ever and I freaking suck. These areas aren't very good. There's all these things you can blame. I'm just so stubborn and persistent though. And I enjoy the whole experience. So that's part of it. Certainly I still enjoyed it, but just kept going until I got that first one. And then things start to kind of click, right? And then you get a little bit better the next year and you start to figure out areas that you like to hunt in. You get more familiar. You understand the animal patterns. You get better at calling, you get better at understanding terrain, movement, all those things, right? Habits of the animals. And then you just get better and it snowballs and it gets better and better. And then you grab a guy like Russ and you take him out his very first time and call him a giant, really heavy 5x5 and put it in his lap and he doesn't kill it.
We don't need to talk about that.
Well,
no, but my point is like you put all this pressure on yourself,
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, Anthony,
and at some point,
your point,
maybe to tie that thought off, all I was going to say, because I rambled for a minute, you get to a point, so I mentioned the fishing stuff, and then you get to a point in your hunting career, and this is the reason I'm saying any of this, is to encourage people to get to this point sooner. I hunted, just wanted to kill elk, and I finally got one, and then I've killed, several, like I've killed a bunch in a row, like every year, and had a couple good years in a row, and I've had some success, and that's been great. And you get to the point now where I'm like, okay, maybe this year I do want to be a little more selective and maybe I'll wait and I'll really hold out and kill a bigger one. But even as you're doing that, I really enjoy the whole experience a lot more than I used to, because I would go and there's so much pressure just to kill one because I've been all these years and spent all this money. And so honestly, sometimes it just really wasn't all that enjoyable because I was like, I have to get it done. Like I can't be a failure again, right? Every time I go on Instagram, there's all these guys with these giant bulls and I'm just an idiot. And why can't I do it? And I guess my point is you should just always really try and enjoy the experience because it's amazing every time, even if you don't get one. And that's where I'm at now. I hopefully will continue to be successful, but it's so much more enjoyable now. And if you can try to get to yourself to that headspace, I think the sooner the better,
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And that's what I was just going to say is, I mean, I've been out 4 years, haven't killed anything. It's going to happen this year. But the other thing, and Russ, you can probably attest to this as well, is you go out and you have these experiences where you fell, but then you start, like you said, Anthony, like you start putting the pieces together and you learn. And so you're able to enjoy the process a little bit more. But what I'm finding as I'm learning and improving, I mean, even from my very first time going out trying to find an elk to where I'm at now, you look back at the things that you did and it's like, oh, I could have done this differently and had a different outcome. Or whether it's patience, like, hey, I just need to sit on this, wallow, because wait for them to come in, and you just put the different pieces together, and that's where I think the enjoyment comes in. But it's a growth. I mean,
you gotta get it. You can only get it from being in the field too, right? We can sit here and talk all day, but until you go do it, And I think it's a good transition for Russ to continue that thought, because when you, when to sit, like you just said, Ryan, when to sit and when to go, why don't you jump ahead to the elk you shot this year, Russ, and what happened? Tell him the story.
Yeah, right. So Anthony alluded to an elk we missed several years ago, archery hunting. It was evening time, so we were going in, and short story long, we blew it and weren't able to get that elk. So this year, morning time, we hear an elk. He's bugling right below camp, and we were back there, right? We were middle of nowhere, clear back, high
in
country.
the thick of it.
Yeah, and and we put on a good stock in, didn't spook him. Early morning, first light, trying to get in position for a shot. And we get up there, and we're sneaking, and we're taking our time, and we think we're being quiet, and we think everything's right. And we get up there, and we're kind of looking through the meadow, trying to see where he's at, and either he hears us or smells us or something spooks him, and he kind of jumps and starts trotting away a little bit, and I just like, oh, he's gone. And Anthony, all that, like, as soon as I say that or feel that emotion, I feel someone push me in the back, essentially, shoves me in the back, say, go, shoot him. And I'm like, oh crap, this is still on. We can still make this happen. But in my head, I was like, totally blew the stock. He's gone. He's not going to stop. So I hurry and get up in position. Don't have time to grab a rest, right? So I'm just offhand, try to hurry and shoot. He grabs his cow call, pauses him at 100, and we get a shot in him. As fast as I can rechamber, Anthony stops him again, and we drop him right in his tracks, second shot. But without him shoving me in the back, right, and me like saying, oh crap, there's still a chance, it would have been a blown opportunity, a phenomenal bull. And I would have just been like kicking myself, and Anthony would have been pissed at me because I missed that opportunity, right? Like, so
yeah, and here's why that's so funny. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say the reason that's so funny and why it worked too, to what I was saying earlier, is I've done that exact same thing a million times, where I early on was like, crap, I blew it. But having been in that situation so many times already, and thinking back, I could have killed that bull. I just knew in a split second he could still get him. So to Russ's point, Russ just dropped his hands and he was like done. And I grabbed him and like threw him forward. I'm like, shoot him. And I grabbed my cow call, and he just stopped. And man, Russ freaking nailed it. Like I said, he was standing, just picked up his rifle and shouldered it and nailed him, and then shot him a second time. So awesome shot by Russ too, just real quick, standing offhand with his rifle.
Yeah,
after getting shoved, awesome. No pressure, right? You go from thinking that you've lost your opportunity to your buddies like, hey, snap out of it, pull it together, man. And then exactly. You have to like shoulder your rifle, lock back in, and hit your target. So yeah, pressure. Well,
and luckily I put in enough rounds too, like at the range, like I had done my work leading up to that, to be prepared to just be comfortable taking the shot and not be worried about how is this going to recoil. This is a big 300 win. Like I'm scared of this. Like I wasn't scared of the gun. Like I was ready to go. And then I just had tunnel vision too, right? So I focused in on the kill zone. I didn't focus on the animal and how big is he or anything. I didn't have time either because Anthony had just shoved me. So it was.
I honestly thought you were going to miss. I didn't think you were going to hit him. I knew I could stop him with a cow call, but I thought you were so worked up, buck fever, bull fever. I just shoved you and was like, get him. I'm like yelling at him. I thought you were totally going to blow it. And then you nailed him twice, like two perfectly placed shots. I mean, it was impressive. It was good.
Yeah. The second shot wasn't 20 yards away from the first one, and it dropped him right in his tracks. In fact, he fell behind a pine tree, and I still didn't believe that I'd shot him. Anthony had glass on him, knew he was there.
That's the best.
I wasn't.
I mean, I've had that same thing, like with my, I don't know, almost, I wouldn't even say every time, but like certainly my first few animals where you're like, I can't believe, did I really, like, is he really dead? Did I get him? So I know what Russ was feeling, but like I'm looking through my binoculars at this dead elk. I can see his feet. Russ doesn't have his binos, and he's like, no, wait, are you sure? Like, I can't see him. He ran behind the tree. I'm like, no, I'm looking at him. He's dead. He's like, no, I don't think he's there. Like, he's dead. I'm staring at him. And I hand him my binos, and he's shaking so bad he can't put them to his face, and he can't see him. I'm like, let's just walk over there.
Totally. It was hilarious. Yeah. Yeah. And that, I
Yeah.
mean, then of course, right, you see them piled up and it's just the best feeling ever. And like Anthony, I mean, it had taken 5 or 6 seasons of going out and grinding and having some opportunities. We're close, we're hearing him call and could never get it done together. He had gotten it done on his solo stuff. But for me to finally like put it all together and have it happen, it was just unbelievable.
And
Yeah.
where
That's
was
cool.
this one at?
How
So this
dare
was just
you even
over.
ask? Hold on. What kind of hunter are you? Where was this? You want me to send you a pin?
Well,
I
I'm not asking for a pin,
know.
just like the general
I'm
location.
joking.
Like was it like
I
an
know.
OTC
I'm just
tag
kidding.
or what?
Yeah, no, I'm just teasing. I love it. I love when people ask stuff because I love to give them crazy answers. But yeah, just north slope of the Uintas. I've hunted a ton of
Okay.
places up there, but I primarily these days, because I like to pack horses, we packed in.
So
People love to throw out numbers too. We hiked in 10 miles. We legitimately rode in 10 miles and then we hike our asses off. So we were 10 miles deep up in the Uintas.
okay, so let me re-ask this question. Russ, when we're through, will you send me the pin location? I'm
Yeah,
just
That's
kidding.
awesome.
there's no more elk in there because what we didn't talk about is opening morning. Anthony also tagged out. So
Mm-hmm.
not only on the second morning did I have the opportunity to get a really nice bull, but opening morning, like Anthony had put this plan together, like exactly like where are we going to go? What time do we need to be there?
Oh,
Got
that's
up
crazy.
early. We made the hike, right? And it was like exactly where we thought we needed to be. We almost got busted by a cow. I mean, Anthony can tell the story, but I mean,
Well, that's
it was
funny because it
crazy.
was both of those kills were what we just talked about, where, man, the experience I've had over the past, X number of years doing this, I would say, well, I'll put a number to it. I really started hunting elk hard every single year, whether I got one or not, like back in 2011. I went every single year and hunted hard ever since then. I mean, so I dabbled maybe before that. And so everything
And
I've
you
learned over the
started
years,
solo hunting, right?
uh-huh. Yeah. And I
Okay.
still do most of the time. Like, we don't have to get in this hunt now, but I had a Wyoming elk tag this last year. I spent almost a full month by myself in the mountains, grizzly country, with just me and my horses this last year chasing elk. Had a bunch of huge blown opportunities. Passed a massive 6 point on opening day like an idiot, and then I didn't end up tagging out, of course. So, but back to this Uinta one. Through all those things, so you have the little experiences you get, like knowing when to shove Russ forward. But then same thing on mine, the opening day of this hunt. Yeah, I had this plan, and there's just so many things, so many variables that always change the hunt, right? So you gotta call audibles all the time, and so you're constantly recalling experiences you've had where what you think the elk are going to do. Long story short, we got up on this ridge first thing in the morning. We were glassing this kind of open hillside where I thought they might graze up into first light. Didn't see them. Super windy, so it's kind of loud, really cold. It's also moving our scent all over, swirling, just not great conditions. But then we hear this bugle kind of down the ridge off in the timber, and it's pretty close, but not super close. And so I'm like, well, let's listen for a minute. We'll see what it does. And then we heard it again. So we get up and we start to walk that way. And I'm like, well, let's just work that way and we'll call towards him. And then we hear all these gunshots. Like this guy shot at one and must have missed it and just kept firing, right? Boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, oh, great. He's going to blow everything out of here because it sounds near where maybe this bull is at. So we keep working down this way, though, because I'm thinking, well, if he shot here, it might push this bull up this draw that we're coming down, and we might be able to just like intersect where this bull's kind of headed. So as we're working down this draw towards that area, all of a sudden I hear some rocks and crashing. So we stop and I do some cow calling, and these two cows and like a calf pop up over and drop into this little draw that we're in. And they, saw us and we're all freaked out, hadn't smelt us yet. And here's the thing with elk, you can always trick their eyes and their ears, but you can't trick their noses, right? You can never overcome scent. That's the number one. I think everybody says it all the time, but it really is true. Your number one consideration when hunting any big game, but definitely elk, is your smell, the wind, right? It's the number one factor every time, because you can trick like I said, their eyes and their ears. So they came up over and I called them and they stopped, even though they saw us, didn't know what we were. they calmed down for a minute, even though they clearly were running from the gunshots and the commotion down below. But they calmed down for a minute and they sat and stared at us. And we just sat there, didn't move, didn't want to spook them. But then you could see the cow raise her nose and she smelled us and then just took off, right? So then just like Russ's shot, you know, the next day, I was kind of demoralized. I'm like, dang it, man. Like they smelt us. It's ruined. I kept waiting for her to do like an alarm bark, which blows everything up that's in the area. So she's running away. I just cow called some more. And luckily she didn't do that. She kind of just trotted off. She didn't blow up out of there. Thankfully, she just kind of trotted away with the other cow and calf. So that was good. And so then we just kept working down this draw and I cow called again and that bull bugled and he was just, you know, I don't even know, maybe 100 yards away. So I look back at Russ and I just kind of start booking it down this draw fast, right? I think Russ was kind of like, what are we doing? And I took off. So I start running down, knowing this thing's still moving up and he just heard me and I'm probably going to miss him. And then I cow called again and I heard him bugle and it's just this tiny little opening, this little meadow, real small. And I'm standing behind a pine tree and I can see him just on the other side of the meadow, standing right there, looking right at my direction, exactly where I'm at, right? Because they can always pinpoint you. So I see him, I'm looking around like this and Russ is behind me now. And Russ, from his point of view, you know, he can share, but then he sees me jump from the, you know, behind this pine tree to the side and just immediately drop to my knee, raise my rifle and boom. I mean, just a split second. I didn't take any time. I saw the bull sitting there and just jumped out and dropped him. And he went, you know, 20 feet and was dead.
Mm-hmm.
I would have
so
to
I'm
imagine.
from behind.
Go ahead.
I was just say, so I'm from behind and all the while, like, again, I'm still inexperienced, I feel like. So I'm just trying to make sure I don't screw this up. Right. So we find somewhere I can take cover and I would take cover and just kind of watch him and judge his body language. And you can hear what's going on. But yeah, so I'm just kind of hanging back and he's not kidding. It was just a narrow little opening there. I couldn't see the bull, but I knew he had him. So I just kind of tried to be patient and watched it from the back. But it was unbelievable how quick all that happened as well.
That's so cool.
Crazy.
It sounds like hunting with Anthony would be like, you know, it's the scene from Last of the Mohicans where you see him like running through the
That's
woods.
what it felt like.
I would imagine hunting with him is a little bit like that, just trying to like keep up with him.
Yeah, you know, it's funny,
dancing through the forest.
Totally. Like by the time we were done with it, I was like, did we just go on a bow hunt or a rifle hunt? Because I felt like I was bow hunting the entire time. I've got this 300 Win Mag, and I had it dialed in so I could take like a long 400, 500, 600 if I needed to shot, right? So I'm like thinking that's the kind of hunt I'm going on because I got this nice big rifle. And
yeah,
that night after he killed his, we spent the night running the mountains. I had a rifle in one hand, my pack on my back, and we're literally running the mountains trying to get in front of these elk. Like we're chasing bugles. Like we ran 4 miles that night. It was unbelievable.
We jumped ahead to your kill, but the day in between was awesome, action packed, and just so I killed mine that morning. We spent all day cutting it up, hanging it in trees, because normally I would have gone out of there, right? But I'm like, well, you know, we got to get you one, so I'm going to hang this in these trees in the shade. And thankfully, you know, it was cool enough, and the wind was so cold that in the shade, it really preserved it. Had a nice rind on it, everything. So it was kind of awesome. But we left it there, and then, you know, that night went out after we're already tired and exhausted from hunting in the morning and butchering this elk all day long. And then, not to mention, like, hunting with horses, quick side note, like, I love it for a lot of reasons. I enjoy the companionship. It's a different type of hunt, but it's so much work. People don't realize sometimes it would be so much easier if I just went by myself and had my backpack, because I can't go. I have to camp where they have food and water, right? I have to go back to camp, take them off the high line. I put hobbles on. I have to let them graze and eat and get water. And then I have to put them back. And then I can go back out and hunt. And then I have to do it again at night. And so I come back at night and you're exhausted. You've done all these things. I can't go to bed. I can't even get my own dinner because I got to go take care of the horses. And then after I do all that, then I get my stuff. And now it's 2 a.m. and you're freaking exhausted. And I'm like, do I really want to wake up again at 5 a.m. and go hike my balls off for another 10 miles? Like, and you don't. And to be frank, Russ, the morning of, before we killed his, it's screaming outside our tent. And he literally said to me, should we get up? Like, should we just stay in the tent? He almost didn't want to get up. And I said, that thing is so close. I won't allow us to stay in this tent. We're going to kill this in 30 minutes. I promise you. And then we went and did it. But we had so much in between that. Oh,
yeah. It would bugle, and then it wouldn't bugle for like 20 or 30 minutes. So it'd just be like, he's probably gone. We don't need to like go worry about it. but like all of that, because like Anthony said, like after we spend the morning breaking his bull down, hiking back to camp to get the horses, riding the horses back to his meet, packing the horses, riding the horses back to camp, putting it all up in a tree, getting the horses fed and watered. Then we got it. Like, we're just like, oh my gosh, do we even go out tonight? And of course we do, but we go out and then we hike, I don't remember, probably a mile and a half to where we kind of got into where we wanted to be. And then it literally was like chasing bugles. Like all of a sudden I look over and Anthony's running down the mountain. I'm like, whoa, what the crap are we doing? So I'm just chasing him, right? So we're chasing bugles. I'm hoping that we're just going to wait for one to step out somewhere, but that's not how Anthony's going to do it. So we're chasing bulls.
Well, because we hear him in a spot over here. And I know, I'm like, they're moving up this hillside. Having hunted this area too, I know where they're headed. So, I don't have time to tell Russ, but in my head, I'm like, they just bugled right here. And I know they're headed up this mountain right here. So I'm like, let's go. And I'm just out of there. And Russ is like, what the hell? So we're like, literally, you're at 10,000 feet elevation, which is hard enough. And I'm running like across these basins and then up a hill. And man, I had my GoPro, was recording. He should have had one that night. I mean, we were just, so many people have this experience, but we just kept moving with them from one meadow to the next, kept catching glimpses of them, and they kept moving, and we're just right behind them, trying not to bump them. And I'm like, this is it. And they're screaming just right behind the trees, and we can see them. And I'm like, get up there, hurry, get in there. And then they just moved to the next meadow. And then we're trying to get a little closer. And we did that all the way to the top of the mountain. Yeah. And we get to the top and they run out into this open kind of up and over. And Russ is done. He sits down. He's like, I'm done, dude. I'm no more. Like, I'm finished. I'm like, no, we're like, we got to go over here. And he's like, no, like I'm done right here. I'm like, okay, well, you stay here then, but I'm going up over this mountain right here and I'm going to go find them.
Yeah. So we get to that spot. And the reason I'm so done is because I had him in my freaking crosshair. Like we had just run like probably 2.5 miles, literally uphill, downhill, through like meadows, all this stuff, across creeks, and had them in my crosshair, and they just wouldn't step out from behind the tree, right? So, and raghorns, right? We're going into this hunt thinking like, if I get a spike, I'm stoked. If I get a raghorn, I'm stoked. We're not going in like, we've had a couple of years where we didn't really kill what we wanted, right? So, especially me, this is like, I don't care what I kill. I just need to finally kill an elk. So to finally have something in my crosshair that night, lights fading, and don't get a shot opportunity, we hike up just past it to see where they're going, and we see them disappear. And I'm just like, I'm done. Like, I'm not freaking chasing them anymore tonight. Like, just pissed, depressed, right? Call it whatever you want. And Anthony's like, okay, well, I'm still going to go look at them. Like, I'm going to go see what they're doing. And I'm like, cool, you go do that. I'm going to sit right here with my gun in my pack and have a snack because I'm freaking done for tonight.
Oh, man. Yeah, this game will break you. I mean, it can mentally break you. I mean, the physical part, you can break real fast on that, but like the mental, I could imagine, I've had situations where I'm trying to chase something and get on it. And I mean, I couldn't even see it. I could hear him, but I couldn't see him.
Yeah.
And I get it. I get how you got to the point. Like, I'm just going to sit here, have a snack. I'm done. Because the only thing I've ever done is archery hunting. I mean, when you first started telling the story, like 100 yards, I'm like, damn, like you took a 100-yard shot with your bow because you're like, he like drilled him. And I'm like, nice job. Like, oh, nope. Yeah, you're right. He shouldered his rifle. I'm like, oh, yeah, that sounds a whole heck of a lot more like bow hunting than rifle hunting.
Yeah, and that's a fact. A couple of reasons for that. It's interesting you bring that up, Russ, because I've thought about that before. In fact, I'll tell you what my plan is for this year, because we've got 2 different tags
And you're going to send us your pin where you're going this year as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I will. In fact, I'm actually going to be checking out a new spot for Utah, relatively same area, but a different canyon I haven't hunted. But to Russ's point, like, so I primarily, I like to bow hunt first and foremost, right? But I'll do others. And in the Uintas, you generally don't have, you can find spots to glass several hundred yards, but it's all heavily timbered stuff, right? So even if you're hunting with a rifle, it's kind of, bow hunter style. You can find spots that there's large openings if you get high enough in those real high basins. But a couple of things, like, for one, you're going to be limited to that one spot. You can sit there and glass all day if you want, right? But you're kind of limiting your opportunities. And two, I don't enjoy that anyway. I don't like to just sit there and do nothing. It's just not my style. I'd way rather get after it. I like to call them. I like to hear them. I like to track them. I want to sneak in. All stuff you do as a bow hunter, right? So it's interesting because even though we had rifles, it is much more of a bow hunt style hunt, kind of just because you're in that heavily timbered stuff, but also just because that's kind of how I like to do it. And I've been more successful. I think you probably could have a lot of success if you picked that one spot and you just sat there every single day for 5 days. I guarantee you'd see elk. That's difficult in and of itself. I can't do that. I could not sit there all day, every day, and stare at one hillside for 5 days. There's guys that do it, and you're probably going to kill one, but I can't do that. So it's a method. But that said, this year I've got an archery tag in Idaho, and Russ has that with me. So we're going to go try to kill something in Idaho. And I've got a different neighbor I promised I'd take out in Utah. So unless he bails, which I might encourage him to bail so me and Russ could get out, I may end up with somebody else over that kind of main week in Utah. But so it'll be the rifle over the counter hunt. But I'll just use my lever action, like iron sights. There's just not a need for big, powerful scoped rifles most of the time, like in that kind of terrain. I mean, I can shoot 300 yards through the iron sights on a 30-06 anyway, or a 30, what I need anything else for. Plus I can just pull it out of a scabbard on my horse. And my other plan is I can shoot off one of my horses because he's desensitized. So I kind of want to ride around and see if I can shoot one off my horse, which I think would be pretty awesome. So we'll see.
And then after you do that, the next year you'll have to shoot with your bow from your horse.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
While he's running.
While he's running.
That's right.
That's fun. Yeah, look, go ahead.
I would say after that he'll take his Sharps rifle, and then it'll be conventional. You know what I mean? He just continues.
Yeah.
That's my debate: is do I do a lever action, like regular lever action 30-30, or I've got a handful of single shot rifles like the Sharps rifle. Do you know what that is? Quigley Down Under. You ever seen that?
Oh yeah.
So the movie Quigley Down Under, which I love, right? One of my favorites. So I have his exact same rifle that he uses in the movie, that Sharps rifle. And it's the original buffalo gun, right? That's what they used back in the day. And I actually had one of those over-the-counter buffalo tags. And so I did a horseback hunt and shot one of those free-ranging buffalo over-the-counter tag with my Sharps rifle. So I used the original buffalo gun to kill a buffalo here in Utah, which was pretty sweet. Yep. That's
way cool. That sounds like another story. Maybe for another time we can get into a little bit more details on. Yep, but that's exciting. I mean, there's so many fun opportunities. I mean, you hear about this stuff and you can't help but get excited. And I'm getting jacked up for going out this year, and this is going to be the year.
So where are you going to go? Tell us where you're going to go. What do you like to do? Where have you been? General areas you've been hunting?
So the general areas that I've been, actually just up here in Bountiful. Just you go up and kind of drop in on the other side. Kind of you see Morgan from where we're at. I've gone up there. I've found a canyon that there's elk in. I found a watering hole. This 19-year-old kid, Abe Salmon, that I had on. That dude's taken two freaking stud bulls.
Is he related to Jed Salmon? Do you know? Same salmon family?
Probably. Electric? Yes. Yeah. Yep. They're all related. So his dad owns Salmon HVAC, which is here. And they've kind of, they're Salmon Electric, Salmon HVAC, all those guys. But Abe's a stud, man. And he's kind of like you, where he goes out solo. He'll go up and he'll take whoever will go with him. He'll go up there, but he's gotten two nice bulls here just in Davis County on the other side of the on the east side of the mountain here, and that's the area that we've been going. And then we've gone out to the Uintas. We're going to be heading out there this year. Dustin and Quinn, and my boy and I, we've all we're going to go spend some time out in the Uintas this year, and I'll have Quinn hit Russ up for that pin.
For the pin,
but
yeah. The Uintas are fun.
I'll take him to the wrong spot.
Yeah. That's like this watering
hole.
Real quick, that watering hole that I found up here in Davis County. It's like I was told about it, but no one would give me the exact location. So they're like, "Well, you go here," and I mean it's about a 2.5 mile hike down into it, and then it's a hike down to it. And once you find it,
crappy stuff. That sage oak, terrible. I hate hunting up there. It's the worst,
dude. Yeah, so you can get down to it, okay, but my boy, and I talked about this in one of the other episodes, but we decided to go up through the thick stuff where there's not a path. It's like, let's just go up here. We saw some tracks and some signs, and I'm like, well, we went up there, and then a thunderstorm came in, that bad one that we had this fall, and I'm going we're going to die out here. I mean, because it is steep. We went up the steep, hardest, thickest. I almost broke my leg. I hit deadfall, and that's where it's you get tested and it'll break you. But yeah, anyway, so we're going
place that's cool. If you can figure that out, to your point, it's close, it's local. There's absolutely elk there. I just hate hunting that stuff so bad. I've never spent a significant amount of time doing it because there's so much else I enjoy about being in the big mountains. But man, if you can get a good spot figured out there and you can just go be successful every year, that's awesome. And a lot of people do it.
That's one. And it's to our point, what we had talked about earlier, it makes the wife happy, right? You can take off, you can sleep at home and then get up, 4:30 and then start the drive up. I mean, we've camped up there before as well. I mean, we haven't spent much time up there, but that's one of the areas that, you can get up and go and boogie. If you're just trying to get it done and put meat in the freezer. But this year the archery hunt was not the time to do it. And I didn't go up. We didn't go up on the extended up there. We kept waiting for the snow and it's going to push it down. And then the time ran up.
Yeah. It's so steep on either side. And there's just the backside specifically is so thick and crappy.
Oh,
you just can't hike around, like you said, unless you're on a little bit of a game trail or something else. It's hard to describe unless people know what we're talking about, but you can't hike through that stuff. Like you were saying, you were killing yourself trying to get through it. It's just not, it's
3.5 hours. 3.5 hours to get back up, just to the top to push through. It was that. I mean, you think you're moving, and you are, but you're not moving anywhere fast.
No. Yeah.
So that's what was so crazy about our hunt in the Uintas this fall was I shot my elk at first light. As soon as there was light to shoot, we're sitting in camp. I'm eating biscuits and gravy. We've got a fire going in the stove, right? We're just sitting in our tent listening to this elk rip bugles below camp. And then we're okay, about 20 more minutes, right? And then we went out and got a good stock on him and hiked over to where he was. So that was first thing in the morning. We didn't get home until 1:30 in the morning, right? So we still had to break the elk down. So I started breaking the elk down. Anthony goes back to camp, breaks down camp and the horses and the high line and all the gear that we took with us, right? Plus his elk. So now we've got, like he mentioned, 10 miles that we've got to go to get back to the truck. And we're leading the horses out. We're not riding them. We can't ride them because we've got one elk on one elk on another, and some of our gear on another, and then our packs on with the rest of our gear that we needed to take. So we're literally leading these horses down the canyon for 10 miles to get back to the truck. We got to the truck right at dark, and we killed my bull first thing in the morning.
Oh, dude, you skipped. Well, there's two things. You made me think of something I want to share, but then you skipped two critical, awesome details. Like you said, let me start with this so I don't forget. We had to lead the horses out. So a couple of things. I don't have a huge pack string, so I've got 3 horses, meaning we can pack all that stuff in, but if you kill something, right, you, like he said, you've got to walk out and lead the horses. Huge benefit, right? We don't have to pack it on our backs. That's great. So the first thing I was going to say, the maybe recommendation for anybody is like, always, you should always remember that there has been times like I hate quitting. It's really hard for me if I know where an elk is at to stop, but I have stopped myself when I've been by myself in a backpack and said, if I kill something in this hellhole, how am I going to get it out? You know, and is the meat going to get wasted and spoiled because it took me so long and it's too warm to pack this out by myself and I have to make 5 trips? I'm not going to do it. It's just not worth it. And I probably, even if I kill something, maybe I won't recover it. So my point saying that is like, yeah, we're 10 miles deep, but the only reason I would kill an animal 10 miles deep at all is because I know I'm going to throw it on the horses and we're just going to walk them out of here and be done. If I was by myself with a backpack, I wouldn't go that far. And I see guys do it, but I'm like, what are you doing? Right? Because if you kill one, what are you going to do? And I'll see guys do it and I'm riding my horse and they're like, hey man, I'll pay you to pack this out. And I'm like, man, keep your couple $100. Like I'm headed out right now. I'm not going to go take my stuff back and come back up. Like next time, be smarter. You know, I don't know. So there's my first like recommendation as you were saying that. But then the part you skipped that's awesome is like we hike 10 miles out. So you're even just from walking 10 miles, you're tired. We have our backpacks on, we have our rifles, even though the horses are carrying elk. And we get to the trailhead, and this is my favorite part of the whole hunt right here. Like when you hunt in the Uintas, it's slim pickings, right? Their elk are not all over the place. You don't have massive trophy bulls. Russ got a really good one, right, for this area. And sometimes you get some big bulls, but they're few and far between for sure. There's a decent amount of elk, but like they're spread out. It's such a large geography and across the different canyons, and they move. So again, just to get one's great, but to get a pretty good size one is like, it's a big feat. So we also had 2 that were pretty good, right? So we get to the trailhead. It's where all the cars are parked, and there's a bunch of people that make camp at the trailhead. So there's some wall tents and some guys packed. Just with it's packed. And we're getting there. It's just like, you know, by the time we left, it was like 1, like you're saying. But when we get to the trailhead, it's like dinner time. So people are out, they're around by their tents and stuff. And there's like a lot of people camped right there. And so it's amazing. You feel like the conquering hero, right? We come through the trailhead walking down the road, and we're packing these horses with 2 elk in the racks. And I'm not joking. It was so awesome. We're dead tired. Like at this point, we're hammered. My head's hanging down. I'm just like exhausted. We walk through like on a road, camps on either side. And we walk through these camps on this road, and everybody comes out and they start clapping and cheering. And they're like clapping as we walk through. And we're just like, yeah, it was amazing. I loved it. And they're like, that's how you get it done. Good job, boys.
That's awesome.
It was so awesome. I mean, that's the best part for sure. Oh,
that's
funny.
That's fun. Yeah, that's. I probably, if I'd been up there and not had anything, I'd have been boo.
Yeah,
but sure. It is cool that it's a community that's up there. Guys that are out there, everyone's busting their tail, and I think it's fun to celebrate people's wins, even if you don't have them. Because, like I said, every single time I've gone out, I've learned something. Like every single time, and that's way cool. So congrats to you guys. That definitely you're gassed. You, like you said, I can see you got your head down and you hear that, and it's like, all right, I got enough to get the rest of the way out.
And we've got a horse in one hand, right, leading the rope in one hand, and a walking stick in the other hand, just trying to keep our legs under us at this point. I looked at my watch when I got back to the truck and we got reception. And that day we had done just under 17 miles, just that day alone. So
and then when you came out and everyone started cheering, you probably skipped the rest of the way back to the truck, right?
Yeah, totally. And like Anthony said, because even his bowl was super nice too for what we expected, right? So to come out and have both of those bowls up on top of the saddles like that, it was pretty sweet. We certainly didn't expect it going into it either. Not at all.
What's this? I remember reading it somewhere. There's somewhere where it shows like the success rate of like people elk hunting, and I mean,
it's like 2% or 3%. It's
it's
with a bow that is.
Yeah, well, yeah, but even with a rifle, I mean, it's still
it might be a slight edge, but No,
But
it's abysmal. Utah elk hunting over the counter with a bow is like 2%. It may have changed. I read that at one point though, and I'm like, can you imagine like 2% success rate of all the people going out? It's some crazy low number.
Yeah. Yeah. What am I thinking? And that's what we said too. My boy and I were like, "Hey, we're gonna do archery until we take a bull." And we're we're in that 98% range right now.
Once you do with a bow, though, you'll never want to change. Like I'm excited for Russ. Hopefully, we can get it done in Idaho because it's a bow hunt. Right now, he's got one with a rifle. Such a cool experience, and it was pretty close at 100 yards. But when you're 20, 30 yards from a bull that's just screaming its head off, and you can see the arrow arc and you can hear it thud as it hits this. I mean, it's a totally different experience, and it's intense. You're just like, did I just do that? And then it takes off. It's a whole other mental freak out because you're like, man, I got to find this thing.
Did I get it?
And you're following the blood trail. Oh, I get pumped just talking about it too.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Well, that's fun.
Totally. Yeah.
Well, Russ, as somebody who's newer to the elk hunting game, is there any advice that you would leave to the folks that you think would be good, that could help them, whether it's like the mental side or the physical side?
No, I think expectations. What are the proper expectations? Even going into the hunt this year, we went in, we were super stoked. We had like high hopes, but we also had realistic expectations. We had done a lot to prepare for it too. We didn't go into it thinking that, I'm just going to be able to go and hike these mountains and do all this stuff without doing a little bit of prep before, even down to getting familiar with my rifle and shooting it and knowing that when I have to make an offhand shot without a rest, my buddy just shoved me in the back. I already gave up on the shot, and now I got to hurry and make the shot and not let my buddy down. Like all those things come together, preparation and expectations, making sure you manage those, but then just like enjoying that experience. It's not necessarily about the kill, even though that's all you want to do is kill something. It's knowing that you're going in to have an experience. And when you finally connect, it just makes it all even sweeter. But managing those things and just being able to go out and enjoy it is probably the biggest thing too.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. I mean, it's one of my favorite quotes and it sounds like you put in the preparation, but the quote that I love is, the harder I work, the luckier I get. Right.
Totally.
And you guys did the work on the mountain. You did the work beforehand so that you're familiar with your rifle, so that when it came time, you got pressure and you got Anthony breathing down your neck, slapping you around, like you can execute the shot the way that you want to. So no, I think that's great advice. Appreciate you sharing that. Anthony, what about you?
Keep me posted on your hunts this year. We might have to, because I'm not that far, depending on how busy I am and when you're hunting. Maybe I come lend a hand. If I'm not hunting myself, I love to call, so if I'm just like helping find animals and call and stuff, I love it.
Well, that's good, because I don't even try and call anymore, because I sound like the furthest thing from an elk. I've tried and practiced and tried, and I just, for whatever reason, I'm just telling myself, I'm like, I'm not even going to bother anymore. I gave up trying to call. I thought about taking like my little Bose speaker up and just like recording something and just turning the volume up full blast. But yeah, no, yeah. I'm not going to turn anybody down. If you want to come help call, would love to do that. I think Brandon and I are going to try and go up there. So maybe the three of us could go up and see if we can have a little bit of fun.
Yeah,
so,
right on.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Well, guys, hey, I appreciate it. Had a fun conversation. We'll definitely have to do it again. Anthony, again, is Bustin' Bronx on the IG. We'll make sure that we put that in the handle, and rustling around outdoors. So thank you, guys. I appreciate Russell, the Love Muscle, giving us a little bit of time here today, and Anthony, you as well. So stay safe, guys.
Thanks for having us. It was fun.
Yeah,
we'll
for sure have to do it again. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Hunt Stealth Podcast. Hey, I have a favor to ask. If you would and you enjoy this podcast, head on over to wherever you consume it and leave us a review. It's going to help us get this pumped out to more people that might be interested in hearing podcasts like this.